Hello, my name is Casey Kelly and I'm the Rocketpreneur. Listen, I'm here to help you make, manage, and maintain your money through a spiritual and financial growth mindset. I became a biblical millionaire by 29 years old and I'm here to help you do the same. Listen, this is the Rocket Preacher live weekly business sermon. My name is Casey Kelly. I'm the Rocketpreneur. I'm going to rocket preach at you. Listen, once a week I come to you live from wherever the heck I am in my life on a Friday. Tried to do it at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm always within 10 to 15 minutes. At the end of the day, I think that life needs to be flexible but planned, right? We need to be flexible, but we need to have a plan. But every week, I seek to share with you the things that I learned over 7 years in growing a company from nothing to over $20 million in sales, being able to sell that for millions of dollars. And honestly, I'm here because I want to help change lives. No different than Superman. I'm not Superman. I just love him, as you can see over there. I desire deeply to radically save, conform, encourage, and change lives. That's my objective. My goal is to help change your life in a real way. I want you to feel connected. I want you to feel encouraged. I want you to feel like when you finish watching these videos, I could do anything I set my mind to. I want you to believe that in your heart of hearts and your mind of minds. I want you to believe that you can do anything, okay? So practical things I want to talk about today is this is the 7th Facebook Live. There are 6 other lives where I was 15 to 20 minute or 30 minute videos where I share practical tips I learned in the trenches, going to war day over day and building this company. But a critical thing I want to talk to you about is the idea of determining your value per hour and then building a plan to be financially free. Now, if you flash back, I think it's 2 weeks ago or even last week on the Rocket Preacher, you can find it on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Casey Kelly official. You can find where I talked about how to build a budget, how to make a plan, how to become more shrewd with your money, how to spend your money more wisely and live within your means. And so we're not going to go deeply in that today, but I'm going to touch on some of the practical things you need to outline if you're ever going to reach financial success in your life. The other thing I want to really talk about for probably 5 or 10 minutes is how to determine your value per hour to the marketplace, right? So a couple things. I'm going to assume that every person who's watching this video has a job, right? You have a job, you have a vocation. Even if you're the entrepreneur or a manager or a technician, you have a role. You make an income, you have a job, you have to financially provide for your bills. I'm sure like 90% of Americans, you may be living paycheck to paycheck. 9 out of 10 people are living that way today. But I want to help you change that mindset. My objective goal is to help you build both spiritually and financially, right? I want to help your heart so that you can continue to do good for the world and believe in something so much more than this life. But I also want to teach you practically, how do you navigate the waters financially of your life? Because I believe once you get your money right, it begins to get everything else right in your life. It can't become your identity. You can't live for money, but you need to get it in its place. In fact, Jesus spoke about money almost more than any other topic in the scriptures, right? And so today, we're going to talk about how to determine your value per hour and your net worth value to an organization. A couple of things you need to understand about a company. A company is built for really one purpose, to produce profitability, right? I used to ask my mentors back in the day, what's my job as CEO? Like, I just took the title because I was the head and it made sense, but what is my real job? And they used to say to me, look, Casey, your job as the CEO, the head of this organization, is to produce profitability for the shareholders. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm 60% of this company or 90% or what, at different junctures I had more or less, depending when I sold or grew. But I'm 60% of this company. That means I need to produce profit for me. So I had to ask the honest question, what was profitable for me? What's up, brother man? Juan, good to see you, man. What was profitable in my life? And so the question became, what type of fruit was I going to produce for me as the shareholder, but also for the other shareholders who I had a fiduciary duty to? How was I going to be able to provide financial value back to them? And so the objective of a company is to make money or produce profitability. Some of you may be thinking, well, what about nonprofits? Companies aren't always about money. Well, actually they are, because nonprofits need money. Period, right? At my church, my pastor Bill always says we need men and money. Those are the 2 things that we need. I'm sorry. In this world, we need money as a resource. And so the longer we go pretending that's not real, the more I think we become entrenched in not making what we need to provide for the future. Meaning if we don't talk or think or meditate on how to make, manage, and maintain money, We're never going to have enough resources to do what we want to do. So I think you get the concept. But in order to determine your value per hour for an organization, you first have to realize that a company's objective is to make profit. It's to make money for the shareholders, that top down. That's the goal. So if that's the objective, you need to start to right size your mindset as an employee, whether you're a technician, a manager, or an entrepreneur, doesn't matter which part of the role. You need to determine how you're going to help provide profitability to an organization. So let me give you an example. I've got a friend who's a web designer, right? A coder and designer for a software company. And we get on the phone, we have a conversation. I'm like, tell me about your job. What's going on? Well, I'm working hard. I'm doing everything I can. I'm designing this, but it's hard to communicate. Okay, you got to grow in communication. Tell me about the next thing. Well, I'm struggling with really getting paid what I feel like I'm worth. How do I determine what I'm worth? Well, what do you produce per hour? Well, what do you mean, what do I produce per hour? I'm just a designer. No, wait a minute. You are a designer and you impact this organization for profitability. Every client is worth how much money? Well, every client's worth, let's just call it $1,000 a year. Okay, so let's just call it $100 a month is what a client is worth to your organization in income, right? Not net earnings, but income. Correct. Well, on average, so just a little nugget, you'll want to write this down. Payroll in a healthy company is, let's call it a minimum 18 to 20%. So let's call it a 20%, up to maybe 50% of every dollar that comes in is actually gone toward payroll. And it's going to depend on your industry, right? If you have questions on that, feel free to message me. I can give you some ideas of different industries, but let's give an example on like software. Software is mostly payroll driven, right? What are your COGS? Your cost of goods sold. What are your parts? You don't have inventory, right? And because you don't have inventory, you don't need to worry about paying for parts. So technically your COGS are very low. But in a retail business, for example, like I've been in the retail world for 7 years, my COGS are 30, 35, 40% of that cost, which means I couldn't have 50% payroll, or I've spent every dime because I got taxes and I've got insurance and I've got all the rents, I've got everything else in there. And so I'd be broke, right? You wouldn't make any money. And so it is industry dependent, but you need to understand what your industry percentage of acceptability is. Let me punchline this. Go to Google and type in average income for your role. If you're a web designer, go average income for a web designer in the wireless repair industry. Send. Nothing. Okay. Average income for blank, or average income for a designer in general. Just look up that. Get a baseline so you know what the world values in the market. Now listen, I'm going to always tell you that you should be the very freaking best at your job so you over-index any one of those incomes. Like the average income should literally be like your starting point, meaning like, oh, this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to double that number. Like my objective always when I see a number for a role is to double it. So if a doctor's going to make $100,000 a year, I'm like, cool, how do we make 200? That's just my mindset. I'm always thinking double, 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 double. Why? Because it pushes you towards growth. You set these objective goals and you work towards it. And so I share this with you because let's go back to the analogy of my designer friend. They're like, well, I make like $20 an hour. I feel like that's pretty good. I went to four-year college. I got my degree. I'm a web designer and I feel like it's good. It's like, okay, cool. No problem. What is your financial goals? Well, I don't really know. Okay, well, let's determine some of those. So you can see why the value per hour of what you're worth and what you need to make is so important alongside your financial goals in regards to a budget or where you're heading with your money. Because if you don't have the end in mind, like if you don't have the objective goal defined, you're not going to be able to work backwards towards that goal. So again, in the last couple videos, I talked a lot about how to determine your budget, the value, all those other things. So I don't want to spend a lot of time there on how to determine it, but I do want to say you need to do that. So go back and watch those other videos on how you can do that. But a couple practical things. To determine your value per hour, if it's going to be, let's say in the retail industry, 20 to 25% of every dollar. So that's 25 cents on every dollar that comes in for income can be costed towards payroll expenses. On, like I said, on software, or if you're doing like video or editing or digital, that's different. Maybe that's 40 or 50% of that amount. And again, there's different industry standards for those things. You can look up industry income averages, like I told you, using Google. You can go to glassdoor.com to see the average there as well. But the point is this, once you determine what that percentage is, you can start working towards providing profitable value and making enough money in that organization. So let me give you an example. If I know a customer, back to this analogy, let's say of the software company, is worth $100 a month in income to a company, they technically have $20 to $50 in payroll value that they could commit to payroll. If I'm the only person on payroll, because I'm the entrepreneur or whatever, let's say I'm just the only person who works there other than the owner, then I could have $20 to $40 of value, let's say, that I could be paid for the work that's done for that customer. So then you have to start to reverse engineer what the value per hour of the customer is, right? The value per customer, sorry, let me say it again. The value of the customer reversed per hour. So if you only have one customer, and let's say it's worth $100 a month, and you have to divide that out, that's only worth like $3 a day. So if you only have one customer, you technically only have $3 to draw against, which by proxy, if we go with the 30%, again, just running rough numbers, you really only have like $1. You have like 80 to 90 cents of pay you could make in that whole day. I know this sounds like crude and stupid, but you have to make things very simple. Make it very granular. You have to look at the building blocks and foundation before you can start determining like, well, I want to make $1,000. I want to make $300,000. Start at the very beginning. If a company only makes $100 in a month on a client and you only have $3 a day, you could only make 80 cents a day. That's realistic in order to be within the payroll range to provide profitable value. Now, this is important to understand because if you're a complainer, and we all complain. We all make mistakes or we all get burdened or we feel frustrated. Even if they're not mistakes, we all get frustrated and we have to deal with conflict. If you want to go to your employer of record or your employer today and say, hey, I'm worth more money, pay me more. The best way to do that is to show up and say, I did research on the industry average of pay. I did research on the average income of a customer. They're worth $100 each. I know that. I know that we can have in our industry 20 to 40 or 50%, depending on what the industry is, for payroll. If it's software or if it's digital and there's not a lot of COGS, hard products, it's the higher number. If there's hard products and rents like retail, yeah, it's going to be a low number, 20, 25%. I know that's available. So why can't I get paid that? The only reason they wouldn't pay you that is because they want to make more money, because the objective of a business is to produce profit. That's what we talked about, right? So when you determine your value per hour, you need to go in with business intelligence, okay? So back to this analogy of being a software developer. Let's say you're coding for a product company and your objective is to make you want to make $30 an hour. Why? Because you went online and you discovered that the average person is making $30 an hour in software development. Okay, great. How can you provide value back to your employer? You can go back and say, what is the value per hour of our customer? Well, I don't know that number. Great. Help them determine that because you will be providing value back to your employer on what the value of your customer is. And depending on which part of the life cycle of a business your company is in, whether that's seed or startup or growth or harvest or wherever you're at, right, institutionalization, wherever you're at in the business growth, that will really determine where you can ask for what amount of money or you'll know that they know what something's worth or not, right? And that's part of that negotiation. But I'm sharing this with you because people show up uneducated. They don't actually know numbers or data, and they don't know how to communicate it. And I'm trying to equip you with some tools that you can go to war with and say, this is what I'm worth per hour to an organization. Let's say, for example, just another random analogy. You are a software company and your client's not worth $100 a year. They're worth $10,000 a year. So they're worth like $800. Let's just call it $800 to $1,000 a month in value per client. And you have 10 people underneath you, right? Or 10 clients that you take care of, right? From a software standpoint. Cool. So from a contribution margin standpoint, you're contributing let's just call it $10,000 a month in contribution. You technically could make, in a software world, $4,000 to $5,000 a month in that realm and still be within the payroll constraints. That's fair. If you reverse engineer the time for that, maybe that's your $30 an hour, $28 or $40 an hour, whatever number you need to be. But here's an interesting thought. If you were proactive and you decided to help make the organization better, you could say, hey, let's increase the profitability of customers by doing this more efficiently, by doing it quicker, by providing more value, charging more money, right? You can start to craft how you make more money by helping the organization make more money. Listen, you don't make more money until you help the company make more money. And you've heard that. You've probably heard from employers like, help us get to these numbers and we'll bonus you. And you've probably have employers that haven't honored you in that. And you have to hold them accountable. And sometimes you have to leave. You have to walk away and say, I can't do this. But I would communicate before you just walk away, because sometimes people they get greedy and things, they have to be checked and their hearts need to be checked, or they forget that they committed to something. I can't tell you how many times when I was running my company that I would say, oh yeah, man, we'll give you a raise on this day and this is what it looks like. And in that moment, I wholeheartedly believed that I was going to do that. But 3 months later, after all the chaos, the storms, the 300,000 other things that came in, I couldn't even remember how much I told that guy I would pay him. But to him, it was everything. So if you're an employer, you need to eat crow and be humble and ask for forgiveness in those moments. But if you're an employee or a team member, you should be gracious. Remember that your bosses or your leaders have a lot on their plate. And so don't feel burdened to bring it up to them, but you need to bring it to them, right? You need to share conflict and be honest and vulnerable with each other. So now that you've got this concept in your mind of like, okay, how do I determine what I should make per hour, how to make per hour? I'm going to go online, one, practically look up the industry average for my role. Two, I'm going to figure out which industry I'm in and understand what that means from a percentage standpoint of every dollar. Three, I've got to determine what the value of each customer is per day or per month. Okay. I say per day because once you get a per day value, let's say a customer's worth $100 a day. Well, cool. You know, you have $30 a day. Divide that by your work time. That may not be what you want to make per hour, right? But you got to look at that. If you only want to put 5 hours in, sure, maybe it is 3 hours. So this is how you literally determine that which you want to make and how to make more. The best way to literally get what you want is to make a plan and work the plan. So I love this saying. I've said it before. You've got to plan the work the plan, and the plan will work. Plan the work the plan, and the plan will work. So we're planning the work right now. I'm helping you figure out practically, how do I figure out what I'm worth per hour to a company, to a market, or to an organization? Once you've determined that, you need to move into the next phase of getting what you want. If you can back it up with what I like to call data-driven decisions, the 3 Ds, right? DDD. If you can bring data to the conversation, any employer, boss, leader, any wise steward of money will understand when you bring them facts. And if your boss doesn't understand, get out of there. Like, leave. Sorry, walk away. Don't be the person who sticks around and stays and lives in that world where you're used and abused and taken advantage of. But you have to be humble and be a person who's willing to communicate that you might be feeling used, abused, and taken advantage of, okay? So hear both sides of this. In my life, I've discovered that balance is critical to everything. I literally come off my hinges without balance, and I'm learning that, right? And that's hard for me to admit because I'm the rocket. I'm like, my friend the other day said to me, Casey, sometimes the rocket has to land for repairs too. And he's right. And that's, so even if you burn as hot as I do or don't, you have to think and consider your ways, okay? Be conscious of your ways. I read in Proverbs this morning that common sense and discernment is more important than anything in life, and we should chase after that. I talk so many times to digital gurus and guys as I've been building this, online profile and relationship, kind of being a media guy. And they're like, oh yeah, like state your opinion, give these commands, and nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But they get to this point where they're like, give me something new. That's not new. Read your Bible. That's stupid. Make your bed. Kind of dumb. Eat spinach. What are you going to tell me next? Like, start eating healthy? Come on, it's not new. And I'm like, I hear you. I know you're pushing me to be better, but listen, common sense and that which isn't new doesn't mean it's not better, right? Doing the next right thing is actually more important than doing something new. And that's what I'm learning in my own life. And so here's a thought for you. How can you take these practical, wisdom-proven steps? Determine what your industry value should be based on your role. 2, go and do a little bit of research on your customer value per hour. 3, go and realize that what percentage it can be, and then take it to your employer to provide value. If you're overpaid for your role, which we haven't talked about, you should probably go to your boss and say, hey, I think I'm being overpaid. How can I provide more value back to the organization? And I know that sounds crazy. I have friends that literally get paid like $50,000 a year, and all they have to do is like bring donuts to clients, and that's it. And they'll work 3 or 4 hours a day. And again, no shame to them, but I don't think that that's working with all their heart. I don't think that that's maxing out, because when you look at the hours, you're like, dude, you make like $100 an hour for bringing donuts to clients. Now that's not bad or wrong, but what could you be doing? Could you make $250 an hour? Could you make more money if you put in more effort, right? If you set these KPIs and goals? I think that it is good for a man to work 40 or 50 hours a week. I think that's real, because I think it's good for his soul and his spirit. Otherwise, he gets idle. Look, even being home too much is bad. Video games too much is bad. The Bible says that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. It's this concept of balance. We've got to create routines and balance. And so when you hear guys say like, oh, 4-hour work week, I'm like, yeah, that may be new. I get it. But I don't think a man should only work 4 weeks. I think, or 4 days out of the, 4 hours rather out of the week. I don't think that he should be living in that world because he gets lazy. The Bible says that all hard work produces a profit. It says that the worker is worth his wages, that a skilled worker will serve before kings and not obscure men. A skilled worker will bust his butt. Do it. The Bible says in Colossians 3:23 that we should work with our whole hearts as if working for God and not for man. I mean, I just puked on you 4 or 5 verses that I have ingrained in my heart, like it says in Proverbs 3, to bind on my heart and put around my neck, that are real. That's like, work hard, be diligent. And so when people ask me, Casey, how do you do what you do? I'm like, well, I read the Bible and I do what it says to the best of my ability. And those are those verses on Proverbs and wisdom and doing and taking action and being a person of character and value. So a couple practical things. I hope that made sense to you. Like, how do I determine how much I'm worth per hour to an organization? What I did not talk about was, how do you actually get comfortable with the idea that you are worth 20 or 50 or whatever it may be per hour? Let me give you a perspective. When I started working at a company called Silencer Co., I started out as a machine floor, like a machinist, and I worked on the floor. I knew nothing about machining silencers or building them, but that's where you started, because you had to learn the process so you can move through your other vocations. Totally good. And I would sweep for like 10 to 12 hours, this big, like 50,000 square foot warehouse, and I would clean, and I'd change the coolant, the oil, and I'd run the machines, and I'd work. I sometimes worked 24-hour shifts because I wanted to be the very best machinist at full speed. They called me a tornado there, like you're a Tasmanian devil, you're a tornado, because I would obey Colossians 3:23. Like, I would work with my whole heart at full speed as if God was my boss, not this guy Josh, right? And so I would push as hard. I was imperfect, but I did what I could do with all my energy. But what's interesting is I made $8 an hour. And here's what's wild though. Because I was working so hard and so much, not only did they recognize it, I started getting time and a half and overtime because I was working so much and so diligently, which was quite crazy, to be honest with you. I ended up making like $15 an hour because I had so much time and a half energy put in, because I'd come in when they didn't ask me to. I'm like, I'm just going to come in and do some work, boss. I'm going to knock this out. I want to do this. I believe in the mission and vision. I threw myself in it. Now, you can get disaligned in that. It was a season where I could. I had like no kids. So it was totally okay. My wife was busy working. I was busy working. Like, it was totally fine. There are seasons when you can't do that, but you should give it your whole heart. And I went from 8 to like 15 an hour. And then they finally said, wait, you're working too much. You're going to burn out. We love you. We're going to we're going to give you a salary position at 35 grand a year. I'm like, yeah. And I was like, wait, I think that's like 13, 14 an hour. Wait a minute. That's less than what I was making on your time and a half. I see what you did. We laughed, we made jokes, but they started aligning incentives for the business, because paying $35,000 a year at that time for them was a big deal. Like, even the owner wasn't making more than like $50,000 a year. So to pay a tattooed punk kid who won't stop coming to work and burning his face off 35 grand was a lot of money. But to be honest with you, I was very jaded. I literally was like pissed off that they were only paying me 35 grand. I was like, I'm worth 50. Why don't I make more? And so I did not obey the things I'm teaching you right now. And I got fired. Like, fact, my bad attitude of constantly asking them why I'm not making enough money, or why they don't pay me more. Like, look at me. Why don't you pay me more money? I had no data-driven decisions to help somebody else get comfortable with, hey, yeah, you are worth $20 an hour, or not 13, or not 15. Today, I charge $250 an hour to sit with somebody. I do. Without shame, without any problems. I sit one-to-one, I charge $250 an hour, and I'm very comfortable with it, because I know that I provide literally $1,000 an hour worth of value if they do what I say, and they obey, and they follow the rules, and they follow through, right? And that'll keep increasing. I mean, again, in the last couple of weeks, I've made as much as $500 an hour, and I'm not trying to boast in that. I'm trying to give you a 4-minute mile to run towards in your life. So you go, whew, how do I max out the hours? How do I make $250 an hour? Now, I'm going to continue to teach you these things week over week. So if you pay attention, I promise you'll learn something. If you need help, I want to continue to support you. I can't do all the work for you, but I can give you the resources. I've got a course that's coming out. I'm super excited. I just got back from New York filming this course. It was like 7 hours of nonstop, Casey. It'll be digestible into sub 25 course modules, and you can go through them little by little over time. But the course is going to be available, and it'll teach you a lot. I get emailed every single day from people asking me, Casey, I need your help. Can you help me with blank? And it's just crazy. I was like, I just have to build a course that memorializes almost all the questions people ask me in a place I can say, go look there. Go listen to that 15-minute talk on this idea, and then let's talk. Because I can waste all this energy trying to teach you, but my time per hour, I know what I'm worth. So now that I know that what I'm worth per hour, I can go to market in such a way that protects my time. Do you understand the importance of being able to know what you're worth, provide value, and feel comfortable and confident so that you can continue to grow? If you find yourself in a company where you're overpaid, be humble, do more work. If you're underpaid, communicate. Speak up about the fact that you might be underpaid. You need to share that and work towards it. If your boss doesn't give a shiz, leave. Find another place that will value you. I'm sorry. Give your 2 weeks, be honorable, tell them I got to go. It's not going to work. And don't threaten them, just do, because you need to grow in that. If you don't know how to value yourself personally, you need to start to ask the questions on what are your financial goals. So this is the last piece. I'll spend a couple minutes and then we'll wrap on how to determine really what do I need to be worth, right? Because could you make $15 an hour and live a content life end to end? 100%. Because it's not about how much money you make, it's how much you spend. If you made $15 an hour and you spent $10 an hour, you could survive. You could be just fine. But if you spend $20 an hour and you only make 15, you're going to go into debt and you're going to die. Do you see? It's not all about income. It's your income less your expenses, which is going to be your net. What is the money left over? What's that money that you have left over to do the things to give, save, spend, to make, manage, maintain? What are those things? We talked about them in the last video, so I'm not going to harp that, but you need to build a plan. Let me give you an example of my goal. Okay, crazy goal. Hopefully you set your own too. By the time I'm 35, which is officially 5 years and 2 months away, my objective goal is to have $5 million in net asset value. What? I never thought that was real. Man, I used to make $8 an hour sweeping floors for 24-hour shifts. I would like to make $5 million in net value, and here's why. Because at $5 million in net value, in a 4% conservative return per year, which is very conservative, especially for me because I'm a wild hurricane, I'll probably have huge yield, 30%, 50%, 100% return type deals I get in the middle of because I'm young and I can take risk today. But 4% conservatively, by the time I'm 35, I should make $200,000 a year in just dividends, payouts. After taxes, earnings, all the rest, I can make probably $200,000 a year. At $200,000 a year, do you not think of like $15,000 to $18,000 a month? I could not do a lot of damage in my life for fun. I own my house by God's grace. I own my car by God's grace. I own these other things, and I'm not boasting in those things. That cool check back there helped me get there, selling my company. 7 years of pretty much slave labor of my soul poured out, doing the things I'm telling you to do so that I could actually have some of the freedoms I now have today. But if I have $200,000 a year coming in as an income, then I can be in a position where if I chose to take a private jet tomorrow, I could, and no one would say anything because I'd be giving $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month to my church. I'd be giving to other people. I'd be blessing lives. I'd be encouraging it. I don't want to go on a plane alone. I'm not that kind of guy. I'll be bringing my friends. I'll be changing worlds. I'll be giving to charities. I'll be spending. I will be giving, saving, spending. I'm doing that today with the income I make today. But in order to get to where I want to go, I have a goal. Now, do I think it's hyper realistic to make approximately $40,000, $50,000 a month that I need to make on net average to get to that goal today? Not immediately, but a couple things that I am doing is moving towards that goal. I have big projects, $100,000 book deals, other opportunities. And I'm sharing with you honestly because I want your brain to start freaking thinking, if Casey can do it, so can I. So can I. Within reason, we have to balance our lives. So hear my heart. I'm not saying go crazy, live for money, live for glory, make it all. No, I'm just saying plan the work the plan, and the plan will work. So if you want to hit $5 million in value by the time you're 35, which is 5 years away, you got to reverse engineer the numbers against your current net asset value so you can get there. Okay? By God's grace, I've got a couple $1 million in net asset value. Cool. How do I get to 5? The only way I'm going to get to 5 is going over there. Now the argument's like, well, once you get to 5, aren't you just want to go to 10 and 20 and 30? When's enough? I'm going to tell you that for my lifestyle, I would like to make $15,000 to $20,000 a month in income that I can have without having debts. That's my goal. That may not be your goal, but that's my goal. And so if that's my goal and I'm working towards it, then I would hope that you too would set an objective goal for your life and move towards it every single day. The Bible says without vision, people perish. This is my vision. What's yours? What are you dreaming about? Where do you want to be? What's your 5-year plan? You don't know what tomorrow brings. The Bible says we don't know what a day will bring. Hell, I could die tomorrow. I could die today. Heart could pop right now drinking coffee. I'd be okay with that because I'll go see Jesus, and that's my faith portion of this talk. God alone is the keeper and maker of all money. He has 1,000 cattle on 1,000 hills. But he says, you seek and you shall find. He tells us to give freely to him and others, and we'll see the storehouses of heaven ripped open. Money is a tool. It can be a tool for profitability. It doesn't have to be evil. But if we don't start having hard conversations about what we're worth financially to the market, what we can make, what we need to make, and start using that money for God's good, his glory, and the good of others, we're going to find ourselves unraveling, especially as men. We've been called to work. We're cursed to work. It's our curse. But we can be a blessing to other people. We can refresh others' lives using money in a real way to bless others. My prayer for you today is that God would change your mind and heart about money, and you learn how to make it, manage it, and maintain it. My goal is to radically conform your mind to the idea that you too can not only become a millionaire, you can do it within the frames of the Bible, you can do it within the frames of your faith, you can do it within the frames of your life, and not lose your soul. And every day I'm working diligently to be the man who loves God and doesn't lose his soul, but makes money and blesses others. That's the goal, right? So live a life honorably, do the next right thing. This is the Rocket Preacher live weekly business sermon number 7. We talked about how to determine your value per hour and build a plan to be financially free. Listen, what's your goals? Reverse engineer it, hit it every day. Thanks for watching today. Hey, look, we've got a private group where we talk about different ideas of life. It's a little more where you can get a little bit more time with me if you'd like, and also see some of the stuff we're working on in projects. I've got a book launching, a couple other cool stuff, man. I'll just keep telling you stuff we're doing, some records, some music, just little things over time I'm going to try and trickle in to help bless lives. If it doesn't do anything, amen. I'm still going to be faithful because I work for God. I don't work for you. So anyways, love you. Hope you have an amazing day. Enjoy your life to the best of your ability. Boom, 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 boom.